Welcome to another live stream, folks. Week 2 is nearly here. We're about an hour and 40 minutes away, and we here at Fantasy Armchair Football are here to give you injury updates, an update on my worst to first team in a league against you, my subscribers, if you missed it yesterday. And of course, any last second questions you have related to fantasy football, we'll answer those as well. Just a few housekeeping things to cover, and of course, please pay attention to that ticker below. Just updated that about 20 minutes ago in regards to different injury updates. Please don't mind the boxes behind me. Obviously, still kind of moving into this apartment, but adjusting as we go. So Austin Ekeler, we'll start with him. We covered him yesterday. He is out. So this helps Joshua Kelly in half-point and standard PPR leagues. Historically, Joshua Kelly has not been the most prominent pass catcher, so keep that in mind. Puka Nacua is still listed as questionable against San Francisco. I would not go out of my way to start somebody like Nacua just because of the dreaded matchup. I mean, even if he does play, I'm not sure that's something I really want to mess with. In my opinion, anytime somebody is playing against that San Francisco defense, you've got to do a lot of convincing, or they better be a top-tier player week in and week out for me to consider starting him. And Puka Nacua, well, he is just 1 week into his NFL career. So it's a hard sell for me. Amari Cooper is still questionable against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Still waiting on news for that one. Elijah Moore did tie him in targets in week 1. If Amari Cooper is even on a snap limit, keep an eye on Elijah Moore because of that. Honestly, he looked like the primary focus for the most part in week 1. Deontay Johnson is out. He was doubtful last night. Downgraded out against Cleveland. This is going to help Pickens and Freiermuth for sure. There is rain, and more rain for the Bengals and Ravens game. If you haven't heard this already, I'll be the first to tell you. Look for a high percentage of way more running and just people paying attention. By people, I mean Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow to the guys in the backfield. This is good news for any member of the backfield, Nick Chubb and Joe Mixon mainly. If you want to dig deep, there's the kid in Chase Brown from the University of Illinois as well. Roschon Johnson elevated. And this is a big one. Roschon Johnson elevated to the RB2 spot. Deonta Foreman is essentially a healthy scratch for the Bears from week 1. Didn't get too much action. Roschon Johnson had more action than him anyway. A lot of people were suspecting that Johnson, because of his pass catching upside and his background at Texas of being just a phenomenal all-around back alongside Bijan Robinson, would ascend in the running back rankings. Well, folks, it took 1 week. We'll see if it's permanent. But for this week, Roschon Johnson is the RB2. Saw plenty of involvement in the pass-catching game in week 1. Could see even more action this week. And please, let it be known that Justin Fields threw to his running backs more than any other position last week. He prioritized them a ton. Even when they were down 2, at some point 3 possessions, he'd look down the field, scan, and then eventually it'd be a dump-off more times than not to Roschon or Khalil Herbert. So just keep that in mind. If you're trying to trade for somebody, they probably have Roschon. He's been added more and more the last couple of days. But hey, if he's free, go grab him. I think there's no harm in having him take up that last roster spot on your team. But if you're making a trade, just have him be a throw-in, because I think Roschon Johnson is going to continue to get more and more and more action. Plug and plays, I want to cover those as well. Guys who are not owned in a whole lot of leagues, but that you could just pick up and put right in if you are in a pinch in terms of injuries, in terms of a tough matchup, you name it. We'll start with Baker Mayfield against the Chicago Bears. Mayfield, at least as of an hour ago, is owned in just 10% of fantasy leagues. He threw for a pair of touchdowns with no turnovers in week 1. He's now facing a Chicago Bears team that allowed the 7th most passing yards in the league last week against Jordan Love and the Packers. And that's significant, right? Because it was just Jordan Love's second career start. So, Baker Mayfield's got a little over 70 starts. He has Chris Godwin and Mike Evans at his disposal. Rashad White, a phenomenal pass-catching back as well, if given the opportunity. And I think he'll have plenty of opportunity today as well. Another plug-and-play, running back Zach Moss out of the Indianapolis Colts. He's back, he's healthy, and he's set to go against this Texans team. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor is still out. We're playing that card. Houston is favored by a point, which is kind of shocking to me, considering that C.J. Stroud himself might be questionable, so it'd be back down to Davis Mills, who, from person to person, you might believe that Davis Mills is an upgrade from Stroud, but the fact of the matter is this team didn't really know who to plan for throughout the week if Stroud was not 100% in or out. I feel pretty confident in Anthony Richardson and a better wide receiver 1 spot with Michael Pittman to get the job done. Regardless, this is, in my opinion, going to be a competitive AFC South game, if you want to call it that. One of the saddest divisions in football right now, being lifted by the Jacksonville Jaguars. Moral of the story, I think Zach Moss gets his touches. And Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore matched Amari Cooper in targets in week 1. And I just mentioned before, Cooper is, of course, nursing an injury. If Amari Cooper does play, I could see him on a pitch count for sure, considering the injury was aggravated just this weekend. So, folks, this is a Q&A for you. We've got a few updates on the ticker below. Obviously, Mark Andrews is in. Christian Watson likely out. Aaron Jones listed as questionable, but he's not expected to suit up against the Falcons. Any updates you are wondering in terms of injury status, I've been checking all night and all morning. If you have start-sit questions, please drop those in the comment section below, and we'll get to those as soon as possible. In the meantime, I will just have these betting lines up. I feel like they're pretty helpful. In terms of just understanding game script, you want to start running backs in winning situations so they can chew the clock down for their team in the latter portions of the game, and wide receivers for a team that you think may have to keep up with a high-powered offense, aka this Jacksonville and Kansas City game. That should be pretty compelling. Richard Hernandez, good to see you in here, Richard. Richard says, need a wide receiver in a full PPR league. Options are Zay Jones, Nico Collins, or Gabe Davis. I'm probably going to go Zay Jones just because of the situation. I mean, you're going up against a Kansas City team that has historically given up a decent amount of passing yards, and I think we can all agree, and that's kind of why I have these betting lines up here. If you look at the over-under, 51, that is the highest we have of any matchup here by a pretty decent margin. I don't think I see anything over 46.5. We've got Ravens-Bengals, we've got Raiders-Bills, and I believe we have Dolphins-Patriots, which is kind of shocking to me, but the Patriots offense did show out in week 1. Yeah. Richard, I think I'm going to have to go with Zay Jones here. He's kind of looking like the wide receiver 2 option. I personally bought low on Christian Kirk in a couple of leagues, but Zay Jones was getting more attention in week 1. And regardless, I think the trio of Zay Jones, Christian Kirk, and of course Calvin Ridley, even Evan Ingram, are going to get plenty of attention in a game that is projected to be the highest scoring game of the week. And I think 51, honestly, I think it's low. Travis Kelce looking to be back. Patrick Mahomes is going to air it out regardless of who he has at his disposal. We'll see if Kadarius Toney keeps handing balls off to the defense. But the Jags offense looked high-powered, looked productive in week 1, and this is supposed to be a really high-scoring game. I don't think this is a game where either team runs the ball a whole lot unless somebody goes out way ahead. Looking at Chiefs at -3.5. Richard, I'm going Zay Jones. I think he's in the best spot at the moment. Nico Collins, not bad. Actually had a decent target share. I think it's going to be a lower scoring game between Indianapolis and Houston. Not to mention, he does share touches with Dameon Pierce and Devin Singletary, and I feel like if the whole quarterback situation is hanging in the balances, considering that CJ Stroud looks like he will be a true game-time decision, I don't see whoever ends up being under center throwing it 35 to 40 times. I mean, I could be wrong. I think it's a pretty rare occurrence when we don't know who the quarterback is going to be. I think the easy thing for Houston to do here is just to lean on the run a little bit more. We will have to see. And Gabe Davis always just scares me, Richard, because obviously big targets, typically around that 18 to 19 yards per reception mark. But we really don't know. We don't know what he's going to do. He has the occasional, and I could show you here. I'll pull it up. I'll get off the betting lines. I mean, we see about 2 or 3 boom performances per year. Obviously, projecting this in pretty recent memory. Gabe Davis has not been in the league for very long, going into year 4. But if we look at the game log from last year, I mean, just from a usage standpoint, and also we want to consider, I mean, this guy is catching half the passes thrown at him, Richard. That's what really concerns me. Obviously, the 17.4 yards per reception and even the 7 touchdowns shows the potential upside, and we have the big play games. We have games like this where we're going, oh my goodness, Gabe Davis could be a league winner. But more times than not, we have something like this, where yes, he was targeted 5 times, but he only caught 2 of them for 33 yards because they were way down the field. He's a huge risk-reward player, but in my opinion, Gabe Davis overall is more risk than reward. So that's my take on that. Need a tight end this week. We're going to go with Sam Laporta or David Njoku. Richard, I'm going to go with Sam Laporta strictly, and I do mean strictly because of the running situation in Cleveland. I really don't know how you don't lean on somebody like Nick Chubb, especially in a good old-fashioned AFC North matchup. Nick Chubb averaging over 5 yards per carry. He's starting to catch the ball a little bit too, which was pretty crazy to see. We're still kind of figuring out Deshaun Watson, and I don't think David Njoku is a bad pick, but Sam Laporta saw a decent amount of action in the opening week. I mean, here's the crazy part to me, right? Yeah, not too much usage for David Njoku out of the 29 passes let go by Deshaun Watson. And again, I really don't think Cleveland is all that confident in Deshaun Watson quite yet. We're seeing a heavy, and I mean heavy, lean towards running the ball. I mean, they even got Elijah Moore involved in there. Jerome Ford was involved in there because obviously no more Kareem Hunt. But when Nick Chubb is out there doing this, I mean, a career 5 yards per carry player who set a career high in touches last season at over 300. I'm feeling pretty good about him. But then you've also got Elijah Moore. If Amari Cooper's out, I might feel a little more inclined to take Njoku, but typically in these AFC North matchups, you are seeing it's going to be Browns and Steelers. You're seeing both teams run the ball a lot. Nick Chubb's efficient, and now all of a sudden, Nick Chubb is doing something he hasn't been known to do before, and that is get more involved in the pass-catching game. Not too concerned about Jordan here. I mean, another tight end pickup, but I like Njoku in higher scoring games. I think this is going to be more ground and pound, and we've just got other options here. Even Nick Chubb out there with 4 targets, getting more targets than the tight end in Njoku. I'm going to go with Sam Laporta. Noah Watkins, is Mark Andrews worth is Mark Andrews playing? Mark Andrews is playing. I thought I saw the word worth there. Mark Andrews is in. Isaiah Likely slotted into the backup spot, Noah. So I am definitely plugging and playing Mark Andrews. It's not the best weather situation. There is a lot of rain. So if you do have a deep tight end room, I'm talking, obviously, TJ Hawkinson already played. If you've got a Travis Kelce, my voice went out a little earlier than I thought it would today. If you've got a Travis Kelce, if you've got a Darren Waller, a George Kittle, even an Evan Ingram in the situation we're looking at with the 51-point total, I mean, the largest over-under line by, looks like 4.5 points this week. Unless you have one of those select few tight ends, I am rolling with Mark Andrews, even with the poor weather, to be honest. Richard says, salute. Yes, sir. Thanks for stopping in. Yeah, Packers-Falcons, another one I wanted to talk about because obviously Aaron Jones looks like he's not going to play. I mean, the fact of the matter with the Falcons is their secondary is looking pretty nice. So we can look at their personnel, see that now, of course, they have Terrell, they have Jesse Bates. They only allowed 100 and something yards. I believe it was below 150 in week 1. And the Packers, if you look at their personnel, it's all, and I mean all youth, which is good, but with youth comes inexperience. And the reason I love A.J. Dillon so much is the same reason I loved Aaron Jones last week. You have essentially a rookie quarterback in Jordan Love, surrounded by, here are his pass catchers. Ready? Rookie, Luke Musgrave. Jaden Reed, rookie. Romeo Doubs, second year, didn't get too much action until the latter half of last year, but had a great preseason. Christian Watson, second year. Maybe not playing. Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, the vets. And this team ran the ball more than they have in the last few years. Last year, they were in the mid-40s, about as balanced of an attack as we've seen. And that's with a veteran quarterback under center in Aaron Rodgers. I mean, now it's Jordan Love, who is about to make his 3rd career start against a phenomenal secondary in the Atlanta Falcons that did not allow a whole lot of pass yards. $127 pass yards allowed. Obviously a very small sample size. But, I mean, are you seeing all the green flags for a guy like A.J. Dillon? Aaron Jones expected not to suit up unless something crazy happens in the next hour and a half. Christian Watson's questionable, so at the very best, he might be on a pitch count. Second-year receiver, rookie tight end, veteran, new quarterback. Why would you not lean on the run, especially against a strong secondary that's only allowing 127 passing yards? I am slamming the start on A.J. Dillon. Breece Hall looks like he's still questionable. I don't love the Breece Hall start, particularly just because, one, he's playing the Cowboys. And two, we knew even before he was listed as questionable to play in this game that he was going to be on a pitch count and Dalvin Cook was going to get touches. Now listen, when Breece Hall has a decent matchup and he's not playing one of the best defenses in the entire league, I like it a lot because obviously there's no Aaron Rodgers anymore. And until further notice, the answer is going to be Zach Wilson. I would guess that both him and Dalvin Cook are running a lot. Obviously, the value of Dalvin Cook has gone up so much in the last few days. It is hard to ignore that. But yeah, this Ravens-Bengals game is going to be not too pretty. I mean, I think 46.5 is generous. If we look at the Cincinnati forecast, they're supposed to get a decent amount of rain throughout the day. It's going to be spotty, but I mean, Ja'Marr Chase was in an interview a couple days ago. I mean, week one was riddled with a little bit of weather, right? And one of the reporters told him, look, it's probably going to rain a decent amount. And he's like, well, that's just wonderful. Or he said something in a sarcastic tone. Obviously wants to be a part of an offense that's going to get going a lot. I'm still okay with T. Higgins. I'm still okay with Ja'Marr Chase. I think even in bubble screens, checkdowns, any low-risk plays, this offense is going to find a way to get going against the Ravens secondary. At the end of the day, you have somebody in Ja'Marr Chase who's a top 5 wide receiver across all of fantasy formats. You have T. Higgins, who is a 1,000-yard receiver in the last 2 years and is actually having better performances than he had his rookie year when he was the wide receiver one. He's 6'4", got huge stature, and it's really, really hard for me to believe that Joe Burrow has a tough game 2 games in a row. I mean, that was an all-time bad performance. T. Higgins, we said this in the top 25 wide receiver rankings video that was released 2 days ago. Out of the 47 games that he's played, he has only been held to 0 receptions in 2 of them. Now, one was against the Ravens, but, I mean, these are anomalies. Absolute anomalies. Folks, if you are just dropping in, Mark Andrews is in. We've got plenty of injury updates on the ticker below, but Austin Eckler out. Puka Nacua still questionable ahead of the matchup against San Francisco. We'll keep an eye on that one. Same situation with Amari Cooper against Pittsburgh. Obviously, going to have to wait a little longer on that one as well. Deontay Johnson out against Cleveland. Rain, and more rain for the Bengals and Ravens game. Look for high percentage throws and more running, meaning more usage for the backfield, a.k.a. Nick Chubb and Joe Mixon. Maybe look into those backups in dynasty formats and double flexes. And Roschon Johnson elevated to the RB2 spot. It doesn't seem that significant, but I'm telling you right now, do not sleep on Roschon Johnson. Relatively involved in an offense that used the running backs more than any other position. Again, this is a Bears team that just in 2022 ran the ball more often than anybody else. They broke a franchise record for rushing yards. Justin Fields, when he was throwing the ball, was targeting Roschon and Khalil Herbert. And D'Onta Foreman, with him being a healthy scratch, is only going to give Roschon Johnson more and more opportunity. I mean, the Bears are not tied to Khalil Herbert. He is still on his rookie contract, so it gives them some flexibility. Super efficient last year. Didn't have the strongest week in week 1. Really, no Bears rusher did outside of Justin Fields. But please let it be known that Justin Fields likes to throw to his running backs, as indicated on this chart right here. Brian says, thank you. Answered this yesterday. Going with ETN as my running back 1. Unsure if I should do Pierce and Montgomery as an RB2 and flex combination, or should I choose between one? Should I choose between one and have Zay Jones as a flex PPR? I kind of like Zay Jones over somebody who's a little more involved on the ground in Dameon Pierce. Although Dameon Pierce, I think, does get a lot more touches today, Brian, if CJ Stroud is out. CJ Stroud looks like it's going to be a true game time decision. We might not even know his status by the end of this stream. But if we are going to choose between one of these, I mean, David Montgomery has so much touchdown upside that I'm definitely all right with taking him. So it's pretty much between Dameon Pierce and Zay Jones, because we do know that Jahmyr Gibbs is still going to be slowly worked into this offense. We've seen it time and time again. We saw it with Breece Hall last year. You know, he wasn't receiving a ton of touches until I believe week 3 or 4. Then he broke out, and we know the rest. I do like Zay Jones as a flex, and typically that's going to be my tiebreaker, Brian, between Dameon Pierce and Zay Jones. Zay Jones is going against that Kansas City secondary. I mean, it's really hard for me to deny a wide receiver who's usually relatively involved on a team that's in a matchup where the over-under is higher than any other matchup by 4.5 points. We've got 46.5 here with the Dolphins and Patriots. We've got 46.5 here with the Ravens and Bengals, even in the rain. That just shows how much confidence the odds makers have in these two offenses. And we have 46.5 here with the Raiders and Bills. Here we are at 51. I think it could even be higher, to be honest. I would smack the over on this, but I'm not giving betting advice. Brian, I think I like Zay Jones. More times than not, my tiebreaker is a wide receiver. Is a wide receiver between a wide receiver and a running back for a flex spot. But especially with this situation, I think Zay Jones is pretty involved. I would give the nod to Dameon Pierce, again, because we don't know who the quarterback's going to be. Is it going to be Davis Mills or CJ Stroud? But I'm giving Zay Jones the nod because this should be a very high-scoring game with the fact that each of these defenses kind of got some holes in them. Not going to lie to you. And folks, I can run through here and just find you. We're actually going to go on Sleeper because they give us snap counts. I'll keep running through these every once in a while because I know some of you are just trickling in. We do have some plug-and plays for today. If you're in a pinch and you just want to put somebody else in, here, I'll get off this browser page so you don't just look at a Google page here. We can get you some plug-and plays. Folks, please leave a like and subscribe if you have not already. And of course, the most important part, ask me any questions that you may have. We've got an hour and 19 minutes before the games start. Lineups are probably going to lock in about an hour and 10. So any questions you have, please let me know. Oh, there's one of my plug-and plays right there. All right, Lamar saying Watson, Prescott, Mayfield, or Mack. Deshaun Watson in an AFC North matchup where they didn't look too confident in him. He threw the ball less than 30 times in week 1 is kind of a red flag to me. Dak Prescott against a Jets defense that picked off Josh Allen 3 times. And we know that Dak Prescott set a career high in interceptions last season with 15 of them. Baker Mayfield against a very vulnerable Bears defense that gave up the 7th most passing yards in the entire league to Jordan Love, who is making his second start. Baker Mayfield is making, I believe, his 72nd start. And Mac Jones, who threw the ball 54 times in the new Bill O'Brien offense, is facing a pretty vulnerable secondary and defense in general in the Miami Dolphins. Judging by my inflection and my details regarding each of those players, Lamar, I'm sure you can guess, I'm going with either Baker Mayfield or Mac Jones. And it's weird, right? In a vacuum, I'm definitely taking Deshaun Watson with the upside in the rushing category, or Dak Prescott with the passing volume. I said this before the season started. Dak Prescott is a career 250 passing yards per game average. I mean, he's going to give you volume, right? He's going to be around 4,000 yards, if healthy, every single season. But Baker Mayfield and Mac Jones have great matchups, and they both showed out in week 1. I'm going to ride either of those guys, to be honest. If you wanted to choose between Watson and Prescott, I'm probably going Watson because of the rushing upside. Prescott, I think, is going to have a tough time against that New York Jets defense that had the Bills all types of confused. Josh Allen took some gambles deep. He was throwing at Stephon Diggs in double and triple coverage and paid for it. But yeah, Lamar, I mean, Deshaun Watson in a good old-fashioned AFC North matchup when he didn't look too sharp and wasn't really throwing the ball a whole lot in week 1. Don't love it. Dak Prescott, who made a ton of mistakes last year, is now facing a team that capitalized on mistakes and gritted out a win in week 1. Don't love it. Mayfield and Mack, they've got phenomenal matchups. I'm choosing between either of them. And some plug-and plays for you folks. Again, thank you so much for joining me this morning. We are going to try and get 10 likes. Is that possible? I think it is. You guys have been super supportive of me the last few days. Thank you so much. Yeah, any questions you have at all, again, pay attention to the ticker below. Lamar says, appreciate it, dog. No problem, man. Always happy to help. Good luck to a lot of you. We had Ray Gaming in here yesterday telling me he had 56 points off 3 players in standard PPR before noon on Sunday. I say noon because I'm Central Time. Anytime you can have over 50 points on 3 players after just a Thursday is pretty cool to me. So I just wanted to give him a shout out. A couple of plug and plays. We start with Baker Mayfield. Just got a couple of descriptions on him here. Owned in just about 10% of leagues last time I checked. Threw for a pair of touchdowns with no turnovers in week 1. Obviously facing a Bears team that I just mentioned is allowing the 7th most passing yards in the league last week against Jordan Love and the Packers. I mean, we could say the same thing about Mac Jones. Bill O'Brien really showed some trust in the fact that he was able to get over 300 passing yards. Granted, it took 54 passes, but the volume was there. Against a pretty tough Eagles team, I know the secondary is bruised up, but Darius Slade was still very healthy and out there and making an impact. Pretty impressive to me. So you stack him up against a Miami defense that ultimately just gave up everything, and the team in general got in a shootout against the Los Angeles Chargers, something they were known for doing last year. Yeah, I really like the matchup. And I like Kendrick Bourne, too. I don't have him on this list. Love Kendrick Bourne. He led the team in targets in week 1. He will probably be going toe-to-toe with Jalen Ramsey, so I'm bullish on him. If you're in a deeper league, if you are in like a 12-team standard PPR, there's no super flex or anything like that, probably not going to go with him, but I would hold him on the bench because if he explodes against Miami, stock's going to continue to go up, and at the very least, you have trade leverage if you have a surplus of talent at a certain position. So that's my take on that. Zach Moss as well. He's back healthy and set to go against the Texans. Obviously, JT still being out. Houston's favored by a point, but with the quarterback situation looming, I'm calling bull on that. I feel pretty confident in Anthony Richardson and Michael Pittman to get the job done and at least keep it a balanced game against the Houston Texans team that, correct me if I'm wrong, is really not all that good. I think Zach Moss definitely gets his touches considering Deion Jackson didn't do anything notable in week 1. And Elijah Moore, he matched Amari Cooper in targets in week 1. Amari Cooper, obviously questionable right now. We still don't know the status. If Cooper does play, he could also have a pitch count, and we just know that Moore had volume. Richard says, need a flex. Mostert or Joshua Kelly. Also have Judy and London on the bench. This is a standard league. Thank you for that, Richard. Because you're telling me it's a standard league, I'm leaning a little bit more towards Joshua Kelly. Joshua Kelly, obviously a limited sample size because it's been Austin Eckler, and more Austin Eckler the last couple of years now. But Joshua Kelly, 15 rushes for 91 yards. Very efficient on the ground. I really think he's got a shot to have a great week being plugged into this offense. It looked like the Chargers' running game did not miss a beat. Kellen Moore, the new offensive coordinator, does a phenomenal job of getting everybody involved and turning them into an asset. You've got Judy and London on the bench. I'm keeping London on the bench. This is a run-invested team like we have never seen. I mean, I would compare the Falcons to the Bears, but they could definitely pass them in rushing volume because while the Bears ran the ball the most last year and the Falcons were second, I could see them switching. The Bears invested in the passing game. They went out and got a couple of offensive linemen, one in free agency, and then they drafted one in Darnell Wright. They also got DJ Moore. What did the Falcons do after running the ball 57% of the time and having a really efficient back in Tyler Algier, who I just saw a report is still going to get his touches because he's done nothing to lose that volume? They went out and got Bijan Robinson. So, Richard, I don't think I don't think that Drake London is in a phenomenal spot. Desmond Ridder threw the ball all of 18 times in week 1. Jair Alexander is no joke, and if he is on Drake London, on top of the fact that this team is so run invested, not a big fan. Jerry Jeudy coming off of injury, it's tough, right? I mean, what if the guy reagitates it? I hate to play that game, but he's one of the most injury-prone wide receivers in the entire league. We look at the Broncos against the Commanders. Supposed to be a very low-scoring game. Both defenses are pretty stifling. I would say it's their strength, even with the fact that the Commanders have not had Chase Young in quite a while. So I'm honestly choosing between Mostert and Kelly, and I'm okay with either of them. Raheem Mostert, in my opinion, has a tougher matchup against that New England Patriots team. I really do believe that. Chargers line. Whoa. What happened? There we go. I mean, the Titans is going to be a tough matchup, too. You have two running backs in tough matchups. And I tell people this a lot, typically, with flexes. I go for my wide receivers, but that's in half point in PPR. Now I just want people with volume for standard, right? Who is going to get the most yards? Is Drake London, who was targeted once in an offense that is very run-oriented and went out and got one of the best prospects we've ever seen out of the backfield, going to get him the ball, especially when he's probably going to be going toe-to-toe with Jair Alexander? Don't love that situation. What about Jerry Jeudy in a game where the over-under is set at 38.5 points? And an offense that was the lowest scoring offense in the league last year and didn't really make a whole lot of personnel improvements. Don't love that. Raheem Mostert, 31-year-old running back who, albeit will get more opportunity this week, once again with Jeff Wilson Jr. still on the IR. He's going to have to compete with Salvon Ahmed and Devon Achane, but it's a pass-heavy attack too. Tua just threw for 460 freaking yards. So Do with that information what you will. Joshua Kelly going up against the Titans front. That's always been a tough matchup for any running back. However, I do think that the Chargers' high-flying offense at least has a chance to get out ahead. And game script-wise, it's supposed to be a decently high-scoring game, 45.5 points, middle of the pack to the top half. They're favored by 2.5. If this team's up by a field goal and they're trying to run the clock out, Kelly's going to get his touches. And I'm going to trust in Kellen Moore here to get him involved. So, Richard, I'm probably thinking Joshua Kelly, specifically because it is standard. I would consider Jeudy even in the poor offense that is the Denver Broncos if it was PPR or even half. But I'm going to go Joshua Kelly here because of game script and because I think he has the better matchup as opposed to New England and the Dolphins. That's going to be tough. I mean, obviously lots of points. The Dolphins are favored. New England looks tough, though. So I'm probably thinking Joshua Kelly. But really, either of the running backs I'm okay with, Richard. Tyler says PPR start to Jahmyr Gibbs, Joshua Kelly, Rachaad White, Jamal Williams. I have them all in the... Oh, 1 second. Your message is cutting off. I have them all in the 10 to 15 range. Yeah. So Jahmyr Gibbs, we know, is still not going to get the ball a whole lot. Going into the next couple of weeks, I would say they really start to ease him in week 3 or 4. Dave Montgomery, I mean, between 21 touches and 9 touches, that's not exactly 50-50. That is a wide range. So not the biggest truster of Jahmyr Gibbs quite yet. He was involved in the pass-catching game. So let's just look at the other options here. I can tell you right now I'm starting Rachaad White. Rachaad White is going up against the defense in the Chicago Bears that struggled mightily on all fronts against the Green Bay Packers. Front seven's all right. They've got Tremaine Edmonds now. They've got Edwards from the Philadelphia Eagles. But the secondary is horrible, and Rachaad White is a pretty decent pass-catching back if we look at him here. I mean, I don't think it's going to be the Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, and Trey Palmer show all day long. Tampa Bay could not quite possibly run the ball less than they did last year. And they had a committed mentality to Rachaad White. Obviously not the most efficient. If we look at last year, Rachaad White was very involved in the pass-catching game, considering he didn't have a whole lot of action until about halfway through the season. You could see when he took over here for Leonard Fournette. And when he took over, all of a sudden we've got 9 receptions, 6 receptions, target-wise, 9, 8, 5, 4, 5. Those are things we like to see. I do really like Rachaad White against the Bears, also considering the fact that the Buccaneers are favored by a field goal, so game script-wise, he gets his touches. So now we're choosing between Joshua Kelly, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Jamal Williams. I think Jamal Williams can have a decent amount of volume. He's got touchdown upside. So if you want to go risky and maybe get 20 points, but also maybe get 6, go Jamal Williams. Otherwise, I do think that Jahmyr Gibbs and Joshua Kelly they're your best matchups, right? You know, the more I think about it, even with Jahmyr Gibbs only having 9 touches, obviously he was super efficient. Went out and got 60 yards on 9 touches and managed to get 8 points in PPR. I don't hate it in a matchup where the Lions are favored by 4.5 after beating the Chiefs. The Seahawks defense gave up their fair share of points against the Rams in week 1, a Rams team that's missing Cooper Kupp, that literally could not run the ball. Cam Akers ran the ball 22 times for 29 yards. So definitely Rachaad White. I'm between Jahmyr Gibbs and Joshua Kelly because Joshua Kelly does not have the easiest matchup relative to the rest of these guys. He's going up against Tennessee. And, I mean, you've got Jamal Williams against the Panthers, which I would like to think. Yeah, the Saints are favored by 3. Only supposed to score 40 total. I'm definitely going Rachaad White, Tyler, and then I'm going to let you decide between Jamal Williams and Isaiah Gibbs. Both decent matchups. Williams is going to get more volume, but I would say Gibbs is definitely more efficient. So, Tyler, if you're more of somebody who is going to want to gamble on some touchdowns, go and get Jamal Williams. Obviously weighs like 25 pounds more than Alvin Kamara. And also, it's his backfield right now. Jahmyr Gibbs, you know he is going to be efficient, but he's not going to have as much volume. But definitely Rachaad White. I would agree. I think they can all score in the 10 to 15 point range. It's really going to be dictated by whether or not Jamal Williams can score a touchdown. He's never been the most efficient back. I mean, historically, right? 4.1, 4.2 yards per carry. I think I saw that yesterday. But you're going to need him to score a touchdown because he's not too involved in the pass catching game. Yeah. Matt Solis, good to see you in here. Full PPR. Mostert, Najee Harris, Jahan Dotson, Puka Nacua, and Michael Thomas need 3. Thank you so much for commenting, man. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. I think I recognize your name, though. So Raheem Mostert in that tough matchup. Najee Harris, of course, in the AFC North matchup that we're going to see where, 38.5, right? I mean, these are just not games where a lot of points are scored. Unless you have, these are the two great offenses, right? But Browns and Steelers typically mitigate the total a little bit. Nacua against San Francisco. Solis, we're going to strike him. So we're between Mostert, Harris, Dotson, and Thomas. Who do I strike from there? Broncos secondary is typically no joke. While their offense was god-awful last year, their defense is the only reason that they did not mean to click on that. They did not go 0-17. So I don't love Jahan Dotson against the Broncos. Maybe he breaks free for a couple, but I don't see this being a matchup where he gets 10 to 12 targets just because it's going to be a gritty game. This is, I believe, the lowest over-under line. Yeah, tied with these two. Tied with the Jets and Cowboys and tied with the Browns and Steelers. I think I'm going to leave out Dotson and Nacua. Najee Harris should get a decent amount of volume against this Browns team. He needs to be involved as a pass catcher a little bit more. And, of course, get more volume. Or not more volume, excuse me. Be more efficient. Because Jaylen Warren had 40% of snaps that he was in for, and Najee Harris was mid-50s, so it's getting closer. But I'm thinking of going... Michael Thomas looked really sharp in week 1. I mean, the question with him is literally just whether or not he can stay healthy. I think I'm going to go Michael Thomas against that Panthers team. Najee Harris, and we're going to leave Nacua out between Mostert and Dotson. Let's go Mostert. He practically does have the backfield to himself. It's just going to be a tough matchup for him. So I hope that helps, Matt. I think I'm going Mostert, Thomas, and Harris. Definitely leaving Nacua out, considering that he is not only questionable, but facing off against one of the toughest defenses in the league in San Francisco. Evan, good to see you back in here, man. Half-point PPR flex help. DeAndre Hopkins or Joshua Kelly. Worried about D-Hop's ankle, and Kelly has so much volume coming his way. I mean, we should be worried about DeAndre Hopkins' ankle, right? I mean, this is somebody who is now north of 30. We know the shelf life for wide receivers is not like the shelf life of quarterbacks or even offensive linemen for the most part. Over-under is pretty high here. Same matchup for sure. Joshua Kelly should have a lot of volume coming his way. Because it's half-point PPR and not full, I think I'm going to go with Joshua Kelly here, Evan. Again, not historically involved as a pass catcher. Actually, we can look here in Sleeper. That's the whole reason I got it open. Again, hope all of you folks are doing well. We are just an hour away from kickoff. Super excited. I'll run through updates once again because I know you guys are kind of rolling in and out on a rotational basis. I mean, super efficient runner, right? From last week, Joshua Kelly was plugged in. Looked phenomenal. Only one target is what concerns me. And you're saying, Corey, that's such a small sample size. I mean, yes, you're right, but 25 targets in 13 games, 6 targets in 10 games, 23 targets in 14 games. So I think Joshua Kelly is definitely going to get the volume on the ground, especially with Austin Eckler out. And, you know, Austin Eckler is typically in there for the pass-catching packages. So maybe the data is a little bit skewed because when these two are in, you're obviously a lot more likely to throw to somebody in Austin Eckler who had 107 targets last year, the most of any running back. But I will say, yes, because this is half-point PPR, and we're likely looking at some volume here, in a relatively high-scoring game, 45.5 points, I think I'm pushing on Joshua Kelly. DeAndre Hopkins possibly hurt to the point where he could have a pitch count, and you know the Titans want to be cautious with him. I mean, they didn't spend an arm and a leg for him, but they did spend a decent amount. And, this is somebody that is supposed to improve the status of your passing offense while this Titans team tries to figure out who on earth to put under center. So, yeah. I think I'm going to go with Joshua Kelly in half-point PPR. It'd be a little tougher for me in full PPR because all we need is DeAndre Hopkins to get 5 catches for 60, maybe 70 yards, and I'm not sure Joshua Kelly matches that. But it's standard, so we don't have to worry. Or I'm sorry, it's not standard. It's half-point PPR, so we don't have to worry about that. We're more worried about volume, and I agree, Evan. I would say that Joshua Kelly definitely gets the ball in his hands more than DeAndre Hopkins would. We've got Jay in here. Good to see you. DeAndre Hopkins or Mike Williams. Because of the injury, I'm probably going Mike Williams. DeAndre Hopkins, unless we are notified, Jay, in the next hour, he is getting 100% of his usual snaps. I'm going to go with Mike Williams. Weaker secondary for sure. He could tear it up against the Chargers, but unless we hear that he's good to go, I'm probably going Mike Williams. A bit more of a risk there with DeAndre Hopkins having the ankle injury and rolling into a National Football League game north of 30 years old. Not the biggest fan of it. So I hope that helps, Jay. Hope I am helping you guys out as much as possible. Just 59 minutes out from kicking off week 1. We'll go over our updates again for those of you who are just trickling into the stream. Austin Ekeler is out. This obviously helps Joshua Kelly, pushing him hard in standard and half-point formats. I've already said that to some of you guys who have stopped in and asked your start-sit questions, which, by the way, please keep doing that. Puka Nacua is still questionable against San Francisco. Folks, even if he does play, not the biggest fan of a wide receiver who is 1 game into his NFL career, who has a huge target on his back after breaking out of seemingly nowhere in week 1. I mean, red flags everywhere. Injury could be limited, going up against one of the most sound defenses that we have seen in the last few years. If you want to go plug in Tutu Atwell or Tyler Higbee, sure, because A, they don't have a bigger target. They don't have that big of a target on their back, and B, I do think that the Rams are going to have to throw the ball a decent amount in the second half. I don't see this game being particularly close. Amari Cooper, questionable against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Elijah Moore tied him in targets in week 1, so very high on him. If Cooper is on a snap count, please keep an eye on Elijah Moore, if he even plays. Deontay Johnson is out against Cleveland. This will help Pickens and Freiermuth. Rain, and more rain for the Bengals and Ravens game. Look for high percentage throws and more rushing, meaning more usage for the backfield. This is great news for Nick Chubb and Joe Mixon, obviously. And Roschon Johnson elevated to the RB2 spot. Deontay Foreman is essentially a healthy scratch for week 1, meaning Roschon Johnson, somebody who saw plenty of involvement in the pass-catching game in week 1, could see even more action. Let it also be noted that Justin Fields threw to his running backs more than to any other position last week. And this team lost 38-20. This team had to lean on the pass. And even with guys running deeper routes, Justin Fields was going check down after check down after check down. Proof is in the pudding here. Obviously a small sample size, but I do like Roschon Johnson now being elevated. We knew he could do it all at Texas. We know Justin Fields from this chart likes to use his running backs. This is also an offense that leaned on running backs more than any other team last year, running it 60% of the time. And it was also one of the worst passing offenses we have seen in the last decade. I believe the Browns in 2009 threw for less pass yards than the Bears did in 2022. Plug and plays, Baker Mayfield against Chicago. Zach Moss now in his starting role, considering Deion Jackson had 13 rushes and could not break 20 yards. And Elijah Moore, already mentioned, with Amari Cooper possibly being limited or even missing the game. Richard, currently have Gibbs as my flex. Waiver wire options are Jamal Williams, Raheem Mostert, or Brian Robinson. Full PPR. Thank you for letting me know the format there, Richard. Jahmyr Gibbs as the flex, Jamal Williams, Mostert, or Robinson. My gut says Gibbs, right? He's the only one out of, I believe, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jamal Williams, and Raheem Mostert. I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs was above them on my running back rankings video, which has evolved, to say the very least, right? Austin Ekeler was in there before we found out he was going to be out. We knew he was questionable. And we had Kenneth Gainwell on there before he was a scratch. But I think I'm going to stick to my guns here in PPR and say Gibbs. Jamal Williams, I would definitely be hitting in standard or half point. Mostert's got a pretty tough matchup. And Richard, if we look at the matchup for Brian Robinson, it doesn't jump off the page for me to say that he's in a game where not only are the Commanders slotted to lose, I mean, the spread's at -3.5 for the Broncos, but it's projected to be one of the lowest scoring games in the entire league. I don't see a lot of excitement here. I don't see a whole lot of reason to mess with Brian Robinson. I think I like Jahmyr Gibbs in PPR because of the pass catching involvement. If we look at the usage across the board, even with the limited touches for Jahmyr Gibbs, which, by the way, he was far and away the best. I mean, they would have been 27 carries for 76 yards without Jahmyr Gibbs. Safe to say they're going to lean on him a little bit more. And David Montgomery, who actually was pretty involved in the pass-catching game for the Bears, I would have described him as an all-purpose back. Not involved at all here. Meanwhile, Jahmyr Gibbs got a couple of targets and, again, took advantage of every opportunity. I think I'm going to roll with Jahmyr Gibbs there. I really do. No problem, Richard. No problem at all. Odie says, Mike Will, Najee, Josh Kelly, PPR. Mike Williams against that Titans defense, Najee Harris in an AFC North matchup, and Joshua Kelly against the Titans defense. Who's going to get more volume? I mean, PPR, we're probably going to roll with Mike Williams. Najee Harris, I wouldn't hate, but I really am a little concerned here. About the usage. I don't think that Jaylen Warren's going to take the job overnight, but 52% on snaps. Pretty efficient on the ground, actually. 2 receptions for 2 yards, so obviously not a whole lot going on there. I mean, Mike Tomlin is not a closed-minded individual. And especially from a PPR perspective, I'm mainly worried about this right here. 6 targets to the 2 that went in the direction of Najee Harris. Not to mention, we're getting closer and closer to that 50-50 mark. If we look at last season, once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, we saw Jaylen Warren get in for over 40% of snaps on 5 occasions. We've already seen it here in week 1. We didn't see it until week 5 against Buffalo. We're seeing it out of the gate. And we're seeing it in the form of somebody who's out in the open field. Look, Najee Harris, yes, inefficient in opener. He averaged more yards per attempt after contact than Najee Harris last season. He was way more efficient, almost averaging 5 yards per carry, while Najee Harris averaged below 4. There's a pretty decent gap between these two. So not the biggest fan of Najee Harris. I'll keep running through here. Everyone's been telling me Kelly. I mean, for PPR, Odie, I would choose between Mike Williams and Joshua Kelly. You have to ask yourself, do you think that Joshua Kelly is going to be involved in the pass-catching game at all? If he can get a touchdown, we're good. But if he doesn't, we need him to catch a few passes. Mike Williams or Joshua Kelly, I'm fine with. Najee Harris, I really do think, is slowly losing this backfield to Jaylen Warren. Even though he wasn't that efficient in Warren, Najee Harris, his crutch has been, he's pretty involved as a pass catcher. Well, Jaylen Warren just got 6 targets to Najee's 2, and Najee Harris did not get a whole lot of touches. I mean, also, Pittsburgh just couldn't run a lot of plays. I mean, San Francisco's a team that's going to eat the clock on you. I really do think that this guy right here is limiting the upside of Najee Harris. So I'm rolling with Kelly or Mike Williams, to be honest. Odie says, yeah, everyone's been telling me Kelly. Fine with either of those, to be honest. Team Out of Nowhere says, what's up? What's up, man? Good to see you. Start to full PPR. We've got Puka Nacua, Jerry Jeudy, or Chris Godwin. I mean, Chris Godwin has had more targets than Mike Evans over the course of the last 2 years. Despite the fact that he's actually missed a couple more games than Evans, he's still out-targeted him. So I really do like Chris Godwin against a team in the Bears that allowed the 7th most passing yards in the entire league against Jordan Love. I only know that off the top of my head because I've been saying it a lot. Really do like the situation for that Buccaneers offense against the Bears this week. Definitely going with Godwin. And then we have Puka and Jerry Jeudy, a pair of, not the best options in terms of their matchups, but between the two, Judy's going to have a tough day. And Puka, it's supposed to be a higher scoring game, but Puka Nacua right now is showing up as questionable. I can keep checking the status on him, and Puka arguably has the most difficult matchup in the entire league. Not only is he facing San Francisco, but after breaking out in week 1, he has a huge target on his back. I am probably going to go with Jerry Jeudy and Chris Godwin here, without much thought, to be honest. Folks, keep firing those questions in. 50 minutes to kick off. So excited, to be honest. Week 1 has a lot of anomalies. Week 1 has a lot of really weird situations. We got T. Higgins getting 0 receptions on 8 targets. And then we have Puka Nacua breaking out. We all learned a new name this week. Week 2, I think, is really where rubber hits the road and we start to be able to look at some trends. Folks, at about week 7 or 8, I started applying, I haven't really told many people this, I made an equation to basically be able to project how many points. Team Out of Nowhere says, have a good Sunday. You as well, man. Good luck in your fantasy matchups. I made an equation that you could basically use. It's based on volume. I still have it saved in my phone. Based on volume and overall contributions within an offense for a certain target. And this works for rushers as well. So to be fair, it is for running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends, okay? I am factoring in target usage and target share. I'm factoring in overall output allowed by the other team. So if there's a running back, how efficient are the opposing running backs? How many times do teams run against them? There's a lot that goes into it. I made a whole equation, and I matched it up a couple of times for a Chris Godwin game last year. I just sprinkled it in, and after about 8 to 9 weeks, we were pretty close at being able to predict what guys are going to do. And for all I know, this is the equation, or close to an equation, that apps are using for their projections. But I thought it was pretty cool. I was able to use some trends. For example, I was using target share. I was using yards per game. I was using yards per game allowed. I was using fantasy points allowed to the position. I was using yards per carry allowed. All that good stuff. Proportion allowed to each position, like how many yards are being allowed to the running back, the tight end, the wide receivers. And from that, I was able to make what I thought was a pretty robust equation. I could tweak it for sure, but about week 8 or 9, I'm going to try and apply that again, and we can test it out with some of your picks. I've done it with my teams before, and it worked out pretty well in terms of kind of helping me break the ice and decide, do I start this person or this person? So just something to look forward to. And folks, keep popping those questions in, trying to get to 10 likes on the live stream today. Thank you so much for popping in. We'll run through our updates once more. Austin Eckler obviously out. Joshua Kelly in half point and standard leagues. I'm pushing him a lot more because historically he has not been too involved as a pass catcher. Puka Nacua is questionable against San Francisco. Don't love the matchup even if he plays because he has that target on his back after breaking out and is going up against one of the toughest defenses in the league. Amari Cooper questionable in that AFC North matchup against Pittsburgh. Elijah Moore tied him in targets in week 1. If Cooper's on a snap limit, we got to keep an eye on that. Deontay Johnson out against Cleveland, and folks, you can just look at the ticker as well if you want any updates. These were all updated right before we hopped on about an hour ago. Rain, and more rain for the Bengals and Ravens game. Look for lots of Nick Chubb and Joe Mixon early. Roschon Johnson elevated to the RB2 spot. Why does that matter so much, Corey? Well, Justin Fields likes throwing to his running backs. And with Deonta Foreman out, he's a healthy scratch. And Roschon Johnson looking pretty efficient alongside Khalil Herbert. And the Bears really having no financial ties to Khalil Herbert, considering he's in his rookie year. I really like the Roschon Johnson situation. And then plug and plays, we have Baker Mayfield against Chicago. We have Zach Moss against the Texans. And we have Elijah Moore against the Steelers, especially if Amari Cooper is out. So hope that's helping, folks. Keep popping those questions in. I am here to help you. Mark Andrews in, Aaron Jones out, Christian Watson likely out with the lingering injury, Amari Cooper. Game time decision, CJ Stroud game time decision. We've got a lot to cover here today. And if you folks are wondering why I have the spreads up here, I think especially when you have a situation like this where it's the 49ers and Rams. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey is going to be a start regardless, right? Christian McCaffrey is one of those guys, as long as he's healthy, you're starting him. But if we had somebody else in here like an Elijah Mitchell and we were curious to see if we should start him or a Breece Hall on limited usage, I mean, when you have a team that is supposed to win by 7.5 points, same with this James Cook. Oh my goodness, I love James Cook this week. When you have a team that's supposed to win by over a touchdown, these odds makers are that confident in setting the spread at 7.5 or 8.5. Love the Tony Pollard situation this week, especially as an all-purpose back who can catch a few passes a game. Game script-wise, what are teams doing when they're up a couple possessions? Or even when they're up one touchdown and there's 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, they want to keep that clock rolling and they're going to feed the ball to their running back, right? If you have a team chasing, like the Rams, I don't know why anybody would be touching Cam Akers after he had 22 carries for 29 yards. Even Kieran Williams, I'm a little hesitant on because he wasn't too efficient but did have some touchdowns. We also look at spread, and we know the personnel of the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, possibly Travis Kelce. Even Isaiah Pacheco is a pass catcher. Obviously, we know the Jaguars stealing headlines with their wide receiving core that's comprised of Calvin Ridley, Zay Jones, Christian Kirk, and Evan Ingram. We're going to want to look at things like this to say, yeah, it's probably going to be a high-scoring game, and we can go in and plug in Zay Jones over some wide receiver twos on other teams. When we have wide margins like this, yeah, I like these running backs. I really like James Cook this week. Because if this team goes up by a couple touchdowns, why would you pass it and stop the clock and let the other team come back? Closer games, we can kind of consider everybody. Certain situations, like with the Packers, looks like Aaron Jones is not going to suit up against a Falcons team that beefed up their secondary, went out and got Jesse Bates, and allowed just about 127 yards in week 1. Not to mention Jordan Love, super young, basically a rookie, making his third start, surrounded by Christian Watson, who's questionable in his second year, Romeo Doubs, who's a second year, Jaden Reed, who's a rookie, Luke Musgrave, who's a rookie. Where are the veterans? They're in the backfield. And typically, teams run the ball more when they have a rookie quarterback under center anyway. We saw Green Bay start to lean on the run more and more last season. Richard says, flex standard league, Roshan, Kelly, or Zay Jones. Standard, we're going to go Joshua Kelly, just because of the sheer volume. The fact that he filled in mid-game for Austin Eckler and was still able to get 16 rush attempts, even without the touchdown, I'll take 9.1 points from Joshua Kelly in a standard league. So, Richard, we're probably going to go with Joshua Kelly there. Roshan Johnson has a decent opportunity to be effective in PPR formats because, again, we did say with the Bears, I mean, I love this graphic just because it really shows Chicago's mentality. Even if we don't run the ball, we're going to use our running backs. I'd maybe take Roshan in PPR. But in all honesty, I like Joshua Kelly with the volume. Zay Jones, it's going to be a high-scoring game. Wouldn't hate him either. But because it is standard, I think that we got to go with somebody who's going to get the ball in his hands the most. So Joshua Kelly, if you want to go Zay Jones, I'm not going to hate you for the decision because, again, highest-scoring game in the league. At least anticipated to be. So I hope that helps. I'm probably going Kelly or Zay Jones. Definitely not Roshan this early, but excited to see what he can do in the future. Jelly of the month, good to see you in here. Drop Brandon Cooks hurt for Shaheed and Kendrick Bourne, Treylon Burks, or Jacoby Myers for PPR bench. Can you specify on that, Jelly of the month? Who do we want on the bench? Are you asking who we want on our roster and who we're starting? Just need a little more clarification on what you're asking here. But thank you for stopping in. I will keep an eye out for your comment here. I know a lot of people are in bunches for the tight end spot, especially, and you can all breathe, Mark Andrews is going to be okay. He's back. This is somebody I really am high on. Not the greatest performance from a PPR perspective. 7.9, I mean, it's going to break you around the top 12. We expect Tyler Higbee to hover around the top 10 like he has the last couple of years now. And when you take somebody who has a target share percentage over 30%, I'll pick up for stash. Okay, got it. So you're dropping Brandon Cooks and you want to choose between Shaheed, Kendrick Bourne, Treylon Burks, or Jacoby Myers. Okay, so long-term, probably Jacoby Myers as long as he's 100% good after taking that scary hit. Treylon Burks is going to have to compete with DeAndre Hopkins and still a pretty rush-heavy attack with Derrick Henry being on that team. Kendrick Bourne is enticing. Kendrick Bourne, great pass-catching volume. Looked phenomenal. Mac Jones threw the ball 54 times under this new Bill O'Brien-led offense. And Jakobi Meyers has the New England connection with Jimmy Garoppolo and actually got more targets than Devontae Adams. This is PPR Jelly. I am either going Kendrick Bourne, who showed out and, has an optimal matchup this week against Miami. I know you're just stashing, but we've seen what happens to Miami's secondary. Even with Jalen Ramsey, there are some holes out there. So maybe we go out and get Kendrick Bourne if we're looking for trade value. If we're looking for somebody that we may want to plug in the future, I think there's a greater chance that Jakobi Meyers, who's on a team that's not all that good, in all honesty, lots of holes on that defense. Maybe we take Jakobi Meyers for a team that's going to have to pass the ball a lot down the stretch. Jakobi Meyers if we want somebody who's going to eventually maybe work his way into our lineup, Jelly of the Month. Kendrick Bourne if we want somebody who we can capitalize on and ultimately salvage for trade value. Dropify, good to see you in here, says, hey, Armchair, should I start Tyler Algier, Rachaad White, or Isaiah Pacheco, PPR? If not White or Pacheco, should I play one of them at flex instead of Shaheed? Thank you so much for dropping league format, for saying what's up, for joining the stream. Appreciate you a ton. Let's take a look here. Let us take a look here. We are probably between Tyler Algier, Rachaad White, and Isaiah Pacheco. So I did see a report on Underdog earlier today that, and I could probably pull it up here. Folks, if you're just joining, please leave a like. We're shooting for 10 likes and subscribe if you are getting value out of this live stream. If we go on Underdog Fantasy, I really just need to bookmark that because I'm on it so much. Oh, hello. I'm just going to read it off my phone if this is going to be okay. All right. I'll just read it off my phone. So, the situation with Tyler Algier is this. Against the Green Bay team that did allow 4.2 yards per carry against the Bears in week 1. So just sit tight. I will get you an answer here. Okay, this was released just 9 minutes ago. Bijan Robinson likely headed for workload splits. I already saw something else on Tyler Algier, but I will just read this, I suppose. Robinson may receive the starting nod Sunday against the Packers, but is once again expected to split work out of the backfield with Tyler Algier. Ian Rappaport reported on NFL Network's Good Morning Football. The timeshare arrangement tilted in favor of Robinson in the Week 1 win over the Panthers as he logged 31 snaps to Algier's 26. But Algier did get more touches than him. It was 18-16. However, Algier turned in the more fantasy-friendly line, 15 carries for 75 yards and 2 touchdowns to go with 3 catches for 19 yards, though Robinson still delivered useful production in his own right. 10 carries for 56 yards, 6 catches for 27 yards and a touchdown. Atlanta may not be able to find as many carries for both backs. I find that hard to believe. They ran the ball 57% of the time last year before investing in Robinson. What projects to be a tougher matchup with the Packers, but Robinson should still be in store for double-digit touches while also functioning as the preferred back on passing downs. Right, so we know Algier's going to get his. I actually like Algier more than most do. Then we have Rachaad White and Isaiah Pacheco. Isaiah Pacheco against the Jaguars. I mean, this is going to be a high-flying game. I think there's an opportunity. These are all phenomenal options, by the way, Dropify. I just want to applaud you for having all 3 of these options on your team. But if not White or Pacheco, should I play one of them at flex instead of Shaheed? Yeah, I would definitely swap one of them in for Shaheed. So I'll tell you right now, I like Rachaad White. I like Rachaad White because he had 58 targets last year and caught 50 of them. Anytime you can find a running back, I know they're dump-offs, who racks in 80% of his targets. I like it a lot. He's going up against a Bears team that struggled a ton, and the Bucs are favored by a field goal, okay? Let's start with that. Game script is going to favor White. And the Bears did just lose Kyler Gordon, so they're down another on the defensive side. Tyler Algier is going to get his, but as you just saw, especially in PPR, Bijan Robinson is the preferred pass-catching back. Isaiah Pacheco is in the highest scoring matchup of the week. I think 3.5. Minus 3.5 is generous. This should be closer to even, in my opinion, because the Jaguars look so dangerous on offense. But again, it is Patrick Mahomes. I am going to go with Rachaad White in that game script against the Chicago Bears. Tyler Algier is enticing, and honestly, I think Dropify, depending on your format, unless it's Superflex or something else that's not conditionally just standard PPR, Dropify, I would definitely consider trading Tyler Algier, because right now, he's getting his targets, he's getting his touches, he's getting a decent amount of snaps considering he's sharing the backfield with Bijan Robinson, the most highly touted prospect, I would argue, since Saquon Barkley. But at the end of the day, he will probably lose touches eventually to somebody like Bijan. It's a rush-heavy offense right now. People know that's the profile. But let's say Desmond Ridder goes crazy and all of a sudden they start passing it more, because I don't think they could run it more than they are right now. Maybe he starts to lose some touches. I'd maybe trade Tyler Algier high going into week 3. I don't think you're going to pull anything off in the next 25 minutes. But let's go Rachaad White against Chicago in a game where I do believe he'll get plenty of touches. Let's go Isaiah Pacheco instead of Shaheed. You know, there's Michael Thomas, there's Chris Olave, there's Jamal Williams on the ground, the touchdown eater that he is. Let's do that. All right. Let's go Rachaad White, who's a great pass catcher, 50 of 58 last season. Maybe not the most efficient on the ground all the time, but he's going to be facing up against a Chicago defense that has struggled mightily. And game script-wise should get his touches. Pacheco in the highest scoring, projected scoring game of the week, and they're favored as well. So Dropify, I'm going Rachaad White and plugging Pacheco in that flex spot. Again, typically I do wide receiver in the flex spot for PPR, but I do think that Pacheco will have plenty of opportunity down the stretch, and just in general in a very high-scoring game. Jelly of the month saying Rachaad White or Javonte, PPR flex. Going to go with Rachaad White here. I can't say with full confidence that the Broncos are going to go out and win this game. Sam Howell didn't look half bad. This offense was the lowest scoring offense in 2022. And I hate to say it, but Javonte is another person that makes me nervous from game to game, considering that he's coming off a season-ending injury last year. So I'm going to go with Rachaad White over Javonte, especially with Rachaad White's pass-catching upside. And again, the game script situation with the Bears. George Play 01, I think it's my first time seeing you in here, so welcome to the stream, man. JSN or Zay Jones? I'm going probably Zay Jones in the highest scoring projected matchup of the week. Underdog actually has Zay Jones projected to have more catches and just more action than Christian Kirk. Don't know about that. But nonetheless, Trevor Lawrence, somebody who is phenomenal at spreading the ball out. This high-flying offense has plenty of distractions. And we know for sure the primary members of the secondary are not going to be on Zay Jones. I'll take this usage every day of the week. If Zay Jones can get 7 targets per game, that's fine with me. I do like Zay Jones, more established, high-flying offense, projected to be a high-scoring game. Milky Way 6, Joshua Kelly or Dameon Pierce. Milky Way, let me know if it's standard or PPR, but regardless, I think I'm going to go Joshua Kelly because Joshua Kelly did have 16 rushes, despite the fact that he filled in mid-game for Austin Eckler. This team ran the ball about 40 times. We haven't seen that in a while. So we're going to go with Joshua Kelly for the sake of volume, I think. Blurpy says, going with Debo, Garrett Wilson, Rachaad White, and A.J. Dillon. Do you think I should sub out anyone for Connor or Kelly? Full PPR. Also, Colts, Bills, or Texans defense today. I'll get back to you on that in a second. Actually, yeah, I'm going to go Colts against the Texans, especially because C.J. Stroud is a game-time decision and didn't look all that comfortable to begin with. I'm going to go with the Colts against the Texans. I really do like that a lot. Are we swapping anybody out for Kelly or Connor? In full PPR, we are not. The Cardinals have the lowest over-under at total wins right now in futures picks, Blurpy, meaning they're probably not going to win a lot of games. They obviously don't have Kyler Murray, and when you're not winning a lot of games and you're working from behind, you're going to pass the ball a decent amount. Sure, James Conner's going to catch a ball here and there. But game script-wise, I don't like it a lot. Joshua Kelly in full PPR, I said this before, unless we're matching up against somebody like Dameon Pierce, I don't think he's going to get a ton of touches. So in all honesty, we are probably going to just stick with Debo. Garrett Wilson, even though it's not the best scenario against the Cowboys, right? But Zach Wilson did hit him on all 5 targets, and they got a touchdown. Rachaad White, I love the matchup, as I said before, against a Bears front that has struggled to say the least. A.J. Dillon's got everything pointing towards a great performance. He's projected to score over 15 points in standard PPR. I'd argue he might even get more than that. Aaron Jones is likely out. Jordan Love is surrounded by Romeo Doubs, second year. I'm a broken record here. Christian Watson, questionable and second year. Luke Musgrave, rookie. Jaden Reed, rookie. Jordan Love, essentially rookie because he's making his 3rd start. The veterans are in the backfield. A.J. Dillon is going to do phenomenal. And I do think he's going to get a lot of touches. I mean, by phenomenal, I mean he's going to be involved in this offense if Aaron Jones is out. Jesse Bates is on that secondary in the Falcons, and they only allowed 127 passing yards in the first week of action. Going to be a much more difficult matchup than the Bears. I think A.J. Dillon has an opportunity to do a lot. So we're going to go Blurpy. We're going to go Colts defense against that Texans offense that doesn't even know who their quarterback is right now. And even if it is C.J. Stroud, not too confident there. Late subs are not optimal. And we're going to stick with your lineup. Dropify says, you pretty much nailed my thoughts. Loved White's matchup. Same with Pacheco. Good idea on Algier. Thanks for the kindness and your input. Anytime, Dropify. Good to see you in here. I hope I see you in here more. I try and be as analytical as possible, but I also want to just get down all these comments because I know now we are chasing the clock. 11:30, now 11:31, and we are almost at our noon kickoff time, at least for Central Standard Time. I know you guys are probably in different areas, but good to see you in here, Dropify. I hope I see you in the future. Any other questions you have, let me know. Edward, good to see you in here, man. Yo, rank these 3 to start this week. Full PPR, Breece Hall, DJ Moore, Garrett Wilson. We've got some interesting scenarios. Breece Hall obviously already told to be on a pitch count. DJ Moore just not involved at all. We brought this up before. Justin Fields, even when he was down 3 possessions, not exactly in a great situation, is DJ Moore. He just wasn't targeted. It was Roschon Johnson and Khalil Herbert. Very high on Roschon Johnson. Go pick him up right now before action starts. I do think with him being elevated to the RB2 spot, with Deonta Foreman being a healthy scratch, we have a great opportunity here because he showed pass catching upside. The Bears have no financial commitment to Khalil Herbert. Really do like that situation. Sorry for the quick aside. So we're ranking Breece, DJ Moore, and Garrett Wilson in full PPR. I'm probably going to go Garrett Wilson first. I know it's not optimal, but Garrett Wilson, at the end of the day, caught all 5 of his targets, got a touchdown, and I think this team's going to have to pass a lot now that Aaron Rodgers is not under center. Sounds contradictory. I think they should pass a lot in the second half because I think they'll lose some more football games. Tough matchups coming up. Dallas, New England, Denver, Philly. But Kansas City here. Chargers here. Las Vegas here. Miami here. There are brighter days ahead. Garrett Wilson for sure this week because I do think that you can't run the ball forever, right? Breece Hall, I would normally have him over Garrett Wilson because I do think early on in the game, to try and balance everything out, the Jets are probably going to try and run the ball a decent amount. Just try and make their guy in Zach Wilson more confident. DJ Moore is kind of in jail right now. 2 receptions on 2 targets for 25 yards. Again, didn't get a whole lot of action. I'm going to go Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, DJ Moore. Garrett Wilson, again, second half. This team's down to the Cowboys, which I think is very likely. The Cowboys are, let me look here, 8.5-point favorites. Oh my. Jets are going to have to throw the ball. End of the day. Breece Hall, even though he is questionable, should get some touches as long as he plays. If he doesn't play, obviously DJ Moore before him. But if Breece Hall can get more than 10 to 12 touches, we're going to go Garrett Wilson. Still the primary receiver. Managed to get 1,100 yards last year with Zach Wilson as the primary QB. Breece Hall, super efficient. First 2 rushes of the year, he broke free for 30-plus and 80-plus yards. DJ Moore, rush-heavy offense. Justin Fields has to figure some things out. I want to switch Breece and DJ Moore, but going into this week, I'm going to have Breece and then Moore. Tino says, good morning, Corey. Good to see you, man. Last flex option, Darnell Mooney or Tutu Atwell. Tino, we're going to go Darnell Mooney. He caught the lone touchdown for the Bears last week. Justin Fields took accountability and said he's going to try and throw the ball down the field more. Chase Claypool is virtually invisible and also was almost not in. He was a game-time decision, but about an hour ago, it was announced that he would be playing. Tutu Atwell's got an extremely tough matchup against San Francisco. And if Puka Nacua is not in there, some people might say, oh, I'm going to bump Tutu Atwell. Fact of the matter is, I don't like starting people against San Francisco unless they're very established. I would not classify Tutu Atwell as an established option. We're going to take the safe option and go with Darnell Mooney here. Sotober 24, start Pacheco or Tony. Sotober, if this is PPR, even if it's PPR, I'm going to go with Isaiah Pacheco. Kadarius Toney, rough first week. Obviously pretty injury prone, and we haven't seen a whole lot of games where he gets high volume. Highest scoring game of the week, so some may argue, hey, go with their number one wide receiver. Well, Travis Kelce could be back, and Chiefs are favored by 3.5. Game script-wise, they're going to run the ball in the second half. We're going to go with Pacheco. All right. David Ezekiel, good to see you in here. Says, need an upside play. Would you start Zach Moss or Roschon Johnson? This week, Zach Moss. Roschon in the future. Roschon was elevated to that RB2 spot. Does have some pass-catching upside. And I do see the Colts taking out the Texans today. That's tougher than I thought on first glance. Over-under's a little higher here. Because Roschon is still the RB2 behind Khalil Herbert. And you kind of have to ask yourself, how much are they going to be using Roschon? David, I'm going to say Zach Moss has the higher floor, but Roschon has the higher ceiling, if that makes sense. Zach Moss is probably going to get more touches, but Roschon has more opportunity in the pass-catching game. So I really do think there's a lot of upside there for Roschon. Personally, I feel safer with Zach Moss, but if you're feeling risky and you want to make a splash, maybe you end up getting 12, 13 points out of him. Maybe you get 4 or 5. Could be ugly. We go Roschon. Safe play is Zach Moss since he is the RB1. Essentially, with Deion Jackson going 13 carries for 19 yards last week. Not the biggest fan of the situation there. Joseph Palacios, what's up, Corey? Good to see you in here, man. I need some help. Start to James Cook, David Montgomery, or Joshua Kelly. Assuming this is PPR, folks, please just try and put your league scoring format in there. I'm assuming it's PPR, but I just want to make sure I steer you right. That's all. Honestly, definitely thinking James Cook here in a game where his team is favored by 7.5 points against the Raiders, and we saw James Cook get pretty involved. You know, he wasn't too efficient, but we've got to understand he was playing against a pretty tough team in the Jets. The fact that they were able to win a football game with Aaron Rodgers being pulled from it mid-game, I think that shows a lot of guts. You know, not the most efficient week for him, but the pass-catching upside did save him. And I apologize. This is, of course, in half-point PPR. But James Cook in a great matchup here, considering that his team is projected to win by more than a touchdown and then some. So I think, Joseph, we're definitely going to lock in James Cook. Now, between David Montgomery and Joshua Kelly, I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs, I still have this open. Obviously, the way more efficient back over David Montgomery, and the only one, at least in a small sample size, that was involved in the pass-catching game. Historically, David Montgomery has been involved as a pass catcher. If we look at his time with the Bears, we'd be kidding ourselves if we called him one-dimensional. I mean, it's nothing crazy, right? About 3 targets a game, but still relatively involved. Jahmyr Gibbs looks like he will be doing more than that. That's the point of all of this. Montgomery, obviously a volume guy. This team was very balanced. 35 passes, 34 rushes. So just to clarify, Joseph, definitely going with James Cook, considering the usage and situation with him being favored. With this team being favored by 7.5. And folks, if we can get to 10 likes, if you're stopping in right now, please hit that like button. We are chasing the clock here, trying to answer all of your questions. If you appreciate any of the advice I'm providing today, please hit that like button and subscribe. All right, so I'm going to go James Cook, and Joshua Kelly has a tough matchup. David Montgomery against Seattle. They are favored by 4.5. I'm going to go James Cook, David Montgomery. Definitely James Cook. If you want to switch Monty and Kelly, I can't blame you, Joseph, but James Cook, best scenario. Plenty of touches, very involved. Damian Harris is that secondary guy, but Cook got a lot more touches than him in a competitive ball game. We'll see what happens here. Montgomery is going to be my second option just from a sheer volume perspective, and 3.5 yards per carry isn't optimal, but again, what is he in for? He is in to punch the ball in. It's that Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift dynamic. So we're going to go James Cook, David Montgomery, I think. Tino says probably most... Oh, I would start Cook and Kelly. Joe, Monty may get the back seat to Gibbs. Yeah, Tino, I mean, it could be either way, but 21 touches to 9 touches, I feel like we're going to have to see a little more evolution. I think both can work. I really do. We saw Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift, albeit DeAndre Swift was hurt decent amount. We saw them do pretty well. Again, I can't blame you for swapping either of those, but definitely James Cook. I agree with Tino. We're confidently starting James Cook today. Claypool will score 2 points today. Watch. Tino says Claypool is putting up 2 fantasy points. I'm not messing with Chase Claypool. It's a rush-heavy offense. He's technically the wide receiver, too, although I'd give that status to Darnell Mooney. Yeah, not too excited about what Chase Claypool has to offer from a fantasy perspective. Hunter White in here. Good to see you, man. Anthony Richardson or Dak, 6-point rushing, 4-point passing. Thank you for that. That's super important because if it was 6-point passing, I'm probably going with Dak. Anthony Richardson, I think, has the better matchup here. He's going against a Houston team that, has a decent defensive front. They're going to make it an ugly game. I think we can all agree on that. 39.5 points is nothing exciting, but 38.5 points here for this Jets-Cowboys game. I stressed this in my rankings video earlier this week, where I just also kind of touched on the concept of QB production. And Hunter, I said that Dak threw a career high in interceptions last year with 15 of them. Now he's going to have to go up against a Jets team that just picked off Josh Allen and beat him. They picked him off 3 times and took him out. Meanwhile, Anthony Richardson, we have a lot to like. Obviously, no Jonathan Taylor. So we know the rushing upside is going to be there if Zach Moss and Deion Jackson don't look great. Deion Jackson already didn't look great. And the fact that it's 4-point passing touchdown format and not 6, that tells me all I need to know. I like Anthony Richardson here against the Texans. Joseph says PPR, so okay, gotcha. Yeah, definitely James Cook, and then it's kind of a coin flip for me between David Montgomery and Joshua Kelly. Joshua Kelly got a decent amount of volume, so honestly, I'd probably go with him. Now, the more I'm thinking about it, 16 rushes, considering the fact that he was plugged in for Austin Eckler, is a pretty good sign for me. And he was efficient, right? Worried about the pass catching upside, but also we had the same situation with Monty. No, yeah, let's go Joshua Kelly. What am I thinking? I mean, he's going to be the starting running back with Eckler out. Let's definitely do that. Tougher matchup. That's kind of what I was thinking, but yeah, let's do it. All right, Isaiah Rodriguez, Keenan Allen or James Cook? That's a good one. That is a good one. Obviously, Keenan Allen going up against that secondary of the Titans and James Cook in this optimal matchup against the Raiders. I think I'm going to go James Cook here just because his team is favored by 7.5 points. I feel like I'm taking a lot more backs this week in flex PPR option scenarios, but James Cook's in a safe scenario. We saw him get plenty of touches. Nobody was really competing for touches with him. Can't blame you for Keenan Allen. But in all honesty, I think I'm going to go James Cook. I think he's in a better situation here. Dem7, I think it's my first time seeing you here, so welcome to the stream. Half-point PPR, Zay Flowers or Tyler Algier. I have Mark Andrews too. I'm assuming you're just saying you have Andrews in the lineup and you don't want those two to conflict with each other. Half PPR. So Dems, we do have a bit of a factor here with the pass catching upside. And I did just read a report on Underdog from Ian Rappaport that said Tyler Algier is still going to be relatively involved. Obviously, super efficient running back, right? What did he do? What did he do to have Bijan Robinson get drafted? I think it was just one of those scenarios where the best talent on the board had to be taken off. Super efficient, 5 yards per carry. If we look last year, 5 yards per carry. Not a whole lot of pass catching upside. That is what Bijan's for. 17 targets, yet Bijan was targeted 6 times in one game. So you do the math. Bijan definitely looks to be the main focus. So I don't love Algier, even though he is going to have a decent amount of involvement. I think he's phenomenal for trades. Really do. Really, really do. So for that, Flowers or Algier, it's half-point PPR. Lamar seemed to like Flowers. He actually had one of the best target share percentage marks that we've seen. We can go here. And actually, if we go here, okay, I'm going to take the easy way out. You're going to have to believe me that no one else had a greater mark because I did just read it. But Lamar Jackson threw the ball 22 times, 9 receptions to Zay Flowers, 10 targets, 10 of 22. 45% target share. That's a gun. Okay. All right. Oh my goodness. Just give me... Okay. All right. You know what? The internet does not like me. 0.45. That is Zay Flowers' target share in all its glory in the search bar. I like Zay Flowers here. I'm sorry for that very weird aside where I forgot how to use technology for a second. But this was for Dem 7. I am going to go with Zay Flowers, main focus of the offense. Yeah, it's going to be a rainy day. It will be a rainy day. That's right. That is the Ravens and Cincy. Half PPR? You know what? I'm going to go Algier. Dems, I'm sorry for switching at 180 on you. I kind of forgot that they've got a decent amount of rain in Cincy right now in that Bengals-Ravens game. I'm going to roll with Tyler Algier. Still going to get his touches, a pair of touchdowns in game 1. Let's go with him. I think he'll conflict less with Andrews too. Giramalo, Pirine, or Akers for my RB2. This is Mario. Oh, hey, Mario. How's it going? So Akers or Pirine. I mean, that's tough because Cam Akers, honestly, had one of the worst weeks I think I've ever laid my eyes on. So it's really, really hard for me to take someone who rushed the ball 22 times and got 29 yards out of it. Yeah, that is not my favorite. Samaje Perine, we want to look at snaps. You know, what kind of action is he getting? Cam Akers essentially got taken out of this offense, and then Kieran Williams went in and did a little better. Samaje Perine actually had more snaps, was more efficient by far. Obviously sharing the backfield with Javonte Williams. 4 targets for 37 yards. If this is PPR, I am all over this. This is a Denver offense that hasn't looked the best. And in all honesty, I wouldn't hate Samaje Perine, even though it's going to be a tough matchup against the Commanders. I think I'm going to go Samaje Perine, Mario, just because I feel like when you have a performance like Cam Akers did here, I mean, that's got to be historically bad. I'm going to have to go up and look after this stream the last time someone had less than 30 yards on 22 attempts. I'm going to go with Samaje Perine, especially because he catches a few passes, and that's always a bonus for running backs. So yeah, we're going to go Perine for your running back too. Sotober 24, Romeo Doubs or Isaiah Pacheco. Oh, and you said PPR. Yes, definitely Samaje Perine in a PPR format. Romeo Doubs or Isaiah Pacheco, PPR for Sotober. Isaiah Pacheco is in a more high-scoring matchup. I need to check Christian Watson's status. It was questionable an hour ago before I started this stream. We're going to check this instead. Okay. Christian Watson. Because that's going to dictate my answer here, for sure. Christian Watson is out. All right, so Christian Watson is not playing. Yikes. So that means there's going to be a more main focus on Romeo Doubs. He might be getting a little more attention from Jesse Bates in the secondary, which kind of concerns me against Atlanta. I think it's going to be a run-heavy game in general. I really do. When you have a team in the Falcons that allowed 127 passing yards last week, and they have a great secondary, and you have a rookie quarterback, essentially, I'm going to keep calling him a rookie until this year's done, and Jordan Love, and he's surrounded by young talent like Dobbs, like Jaden Reed, like Luke Musgrave. I think it's going to be an A.J. Dillon day. I really do. Let's go Isaiah Pacheco in what is projected to be the highest scoring matchup, not to mention the Chiefs are projected to win by 3.5. What do you do when you're winning down the stretch? You run the ball to chew the clock. Let's go Pacheco. Thank you, Sotober. Toby Soprano says, hello, should I start Elijah Moore, Gabe Davis, or Nico Collins? Gabe Davis is arguably the riskiest play I've ever seen in my life just because he catches half the passes thrown to him. Gabe Davis is averaging almost 20 yards per reception pretty routinely, which is crazy. But the problem is we get about 2 to 3 breakout performances from him every year. And obviously we're speaking on a pretty small sample size. But, I mean, okay, this is fine. 3 for 37, no. 1 for 13, no. 3 catches for 171 yards, yes. Yes. No, no, yes, yes, no. Saved by a touchdown. No, no, yes, no. Okay, 3 receptions for 10 targets, 48 for 93 for you mathematicians out there. That's barely better than 50%. Sorry, I probably just blew my mic out there. But I am going to throw Gabe Davis out of the equation, Toby, because we just don't get any level of consistency from him. This is a game that the Bills should do pretty well in. I do think it's a great matchup for somebody like Davis, but there's so much risk there, I'm kind of scared. Elijah Moore or Nico? I'm going to look up Amari Cooper's status. We're probably not going to find out for a bit. Yeah, Amari Cooper's still questionable. And it's a Monday night game against the Steelers, so we would have to sweat it out. But, Toby, the fact of the matter is Amari Cooper is questionable a day before he plays. Elijah Moore matched him in targets. No, I don't want to buy box seats. Thank you. Elijah Moore matched Amari Cooper in targets with 7. I mean, Deshaun didn't throw the ball a whole lot, to be honest, and it is the AFC North, so these teams like to run a lot against each other historically, unless you are Cincinnati, but that didn't work out at all. That is still crazy to me. Holy cow. 82 passing yards for Joe Burrow. F in the chat for anybody who started him. But, yeah, I'm going to take Elijah Moore over Gabe Davis for sure because he matched Amari Cooper in targets. Amari Cooper might be out, and even if he plays, he could be on a snap limit. So, Nico Collins we don't even know who the quarterback is going to be for the Texans. It's a true game time decision between C.J. Stroud and Davis Mills right now from the look of it. And the fact that they don't know who it's going to be an hour out, I think it tells me we're going to get a lot of Dameon Pierce and Devin Singletary. So, let's go with Elijah Moore with Amari Cooper possibly being out of the game. If not, he still had the most touches, tied with Cooper. Dems says, thank you, no problem. Lump Nubs says, pick 2, PPR, Marquise Brown, Nico Collins, Gabe Davis, Jahan Dotson. Jahan Dotson in a low-scoring matchup, Gabe Davis, risky play. Nico Collins, I just made the point, but between these options, I don't know if I can do anything else. We probably go Marquise Brown, just because this team's going to have to work from behind a lot. We'd be kidding ourselves if we said we thought the Cardinals were going to win a lot of games this year. -4 to the Giants. Dobbs probably going to have to air it out a little bit. So we're going to go Marquise Brown. Nico Collins had a decent amount of targets. Gabe Davis has a pretty good matchup, man. I mean, he's risky, but if we want to take that risk with these options, I might go Gabe Davis. Jahan Dotson against the Broncos, I absolutely hate it. I really do. We're going to go Marquise Brown for sure. And between Nico Collins and Gabe Davis, I'll leave it up to you. I will say this. Nico Collins, higher floor. Gabe Davis, higher ceiling. Gabe Davis, easier matchup. Very risky play because, again, he's a deep ball target who only catches half the targets thrown his way because that's how the Bills play with him. Jahan Dotson, tougher matchup. I'm sorry. Nico Collins, tougher situation with the quarterback possibly being out. Marquise Brown for sure. Toss up between Collins and Davis. Collins, higher floor. Davis, higher ceiling. Calvo, what's up, man? What's up, Calvo? Good to see you in here. Start one between Higgins, Ayuk, and Metcalf. I'm going to try and get this answer to you quickly. Ayuk, I just saw earlier, has the 3rd most targets on the team last year against zone coverage. The Rams play a lot of zone. Does have a decent matchup, though, specifically where he lines up. Metcalf, Higgins. Higgins is playing in the rain. We're going to fade him among these options. Metcalf against the Lions. We're going to go between Metcalf and Ayuk. I think Metcalf has the better matchup, but Ayuk was pretty involved and took advantage of all 8 targets and turned it into 2 touchdowns. I'm between Metcalf and Ayuk. I'd give the slight push to Metcalf because of the matchup, but can't blame you if you want to take Ayuk. Caden the Colts fan. Joshua Kelly, Dameon Pierce, or Tyler Lockett. We're going to go Tyler Lockett against the Falcons. Holy cow. You can tell it's getting late for me. Against the Lions. If we're doing flex here and it's PPR, I like the pass catcher here. Dameon Pierce, not much pass catching upside. Joshua Kelly, purely just an efficient runner. Folks, good luck. Good luck in week 2. Hope I was able to help you with this Q&A session. I'm going to try and make a habit of this at least throughout the week, getting a few in. Make sure that you are liking and subscribing, following this stream. If you want more daily and weekly content, we've got YouTube Shorts. We have, of course, videos coming out pretty much every other day, and we're live streaming as much as possible to answer your questions in live fashion. Lamar says Jamal Williams or Kelly. We are going to go with Kelly from a sheer volume perspective. Good luck, folks. I hope you all do phenomenal in week 2, and we will see you in the next live stream.